I was 67 years old when I learned the kind of truth that makes your hands go cold, even in July. It started at my daughter-in-law's baby shower. Pink balloons, polite smiles, all of it. Then she held up the little gift I'd bought and said, in front of everyone, "Maybe next time you'll think before overstepping." A few women gasped. I felt the room tilt. Later that night, at 11:43 p.m., my son called me. His voice was shaking. "Dad, we need to talk. It's about the baby." I didn't sleep after that call. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, replaying the baby shower like it was a film I couldn't shut off. My daughter-in-law Emily had always been polite, a little distant, but never cruel. Not until that moment. When she'd lifted the small white box with the knitted booties I'd made and said what she did, her voice wasn't angry. It was something colder. Calculated. My son Jason had stood beside her, frozen, his smile collapsing on itself like wet paper. When the guests started whispering, I tried to swallow the humiliation. A woman near the food table murmured, "Oh God, poor man." I pretended not to hear. I found my coat, thanked them both, and left early. I thought that would be the end of it. A hurtful moment I'd carry silently until it faded, but the call changed that. Jason never called that late. Not unless something was wrong. When I picked up, his breath was uneven, like he'd been pacing. "Dad, can you come over tomorrow morning? Early? Like 7. 7? I asked. "Jason, what's going on?" He hesitated. I could hear the faint hum of their refrigerator, as if he'd stepped into the kitchen. Then quieter, "It's about the baby. Something happened tonight. I can't explain it over the phone." I felt a knot form in my chest. "Is Emily okay?" Another pause. "Just come in the morning." And then he hung up. No goodbye. By the time the sun pushed through my curtains, I'd convinced myself of every scenario, medical issues, a complication, maybe even a scare at the hospital. But none of those matched the tone in Jason's voice. That was something else. Something heavier. I drove to their house, just before 7. Their car was in the driveway, but the porch light was off. When I knocked, I could hear footsteps approach slowly. Jason opened the door. His face was pale, eyes red like he hadn't slept either. "Dad," he said, moving aside to let me in. He closed the door gently, almost carefully, as if he didn't want to wake someone. "Where's Emily?" I asked. He motioned toward the living room. "She's upstairs. Sleeping. We argued last night. After the shower, I followed him to the kitchen. The table was cluttered with papers, some folded, some open, some with highlighted sections. My stomach dropped when I realized what they were. DNA reports. At least 5 of them. "Jason," I whispered, "what is this?" He rubbed his face with both hands. "I didn't want to show you. Not like this. But last night, after the guests left, I told Emily that what she did to you was out of line. She blew up at me. Said she did it because she's tired of pretending. Tired of secrets. That's when she told me the baby might not be mine." I sank into the nearest chair. My breath shook. "What?" She said she wasn't sure. He continued. "That things were complicated earlier in the year." That's the phrase she used. Complicated. He let out a humorless laugh. And then she told me she'd already taken a test. That she knew I'd find out eventually, so she might as well free herself from the guilt. I looked at the papers again. 5 different results. Some with probability ranges, none with his name listed as the likely father. "She ordered them behind my back," he said, voice breaking. "She said she planned to tell me, after the baby was born, when it would hurt less." I tried to find words, any words, but all I could manage was, "Jason, I'm so sorry." "That's not all," he said quietly. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small manila envelope. "This is yours. Emily left it on the counter after she went upstairs. She said you'd figure things out soon enough." I didn't know what that meant until I looked inside. He slid the envelope across the table. My name was written in her handwriting, uneven, almost rushed. "Dad," Jason said, softer this time, as if he feared what I'd see inside. "You need to open it." My hands shook as I lifted the clasp. Inside were two documents. The first was a printout of another DNA test, one I hadn't seen on the table. The second was a folded note. I opened the test first. When I read the names, my vision blurred. It wasn't a paternity test for Jason. It wasn't for the baby. It was for me. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of it. It listed my name, and beneath it, probability of biological relationship to subject 0%. The tested subject was Jason. I heard my own heartbeat slow and heavy. This isn't real," I muttered. Jason stared at the table. I didn't know she had this. She said she found it in one of Mom's old boxes when we cleared out her storage unit last year. And she said she kept it because she knew one day it might explain some things. I folded the paper, unfolded it, folded it again. My wife had been gone 5 years. We had been married 43. I felt something shatter inside me. There was the note. I opened it with numb fingers. "Thought you deserved to know who's really overstepping," it read. "Emily." I leaned back in my chair. My throat tightened. "Jason, I don't believe this." Your mother never." "I know," he said quickly. "I know, Dad. I don't believe it either. But Emily said she wants everyone to start telling the truth, that hiding things only makes the damage worse." I gripped the table's edge. "She humiliated me yesterday. But this is something else." Jason nodded. "She said she's willing to take this public if she has to. About the baby, and about us." I stared at the test again, at my name, at the impossible percentage beside it. And then I realized something she must not have expected. The test was dated. The date made no sense. I lifted my head slowly. "Jason, this test, it's from before you were even born." He froze. "What? She couldn't have found this in your mother's things," I said. "Your mother wasn't even living in this state then. This test, this isn't real." Jason looked at me, eyes wide, breath caught, waiting for me to finish the thought forming between us. "Someone forged this." Jason stared at me like he was trying to decide whether to sit down or run. He reached for the test again, scanning the date, then the signatures, then the lab information. His hands shook harder with each line he reread. "Dad, this date doesn't make any sense." "No," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my pulse wasn't. "It doesn't, and neither does her story about where she found it." He held the page up to the kitchen light. "This lab didn't even exist back then." "I know," he exhaled, shaking his head. "So she tried to use this to turn me against you?" "Why?" I didn't answer immediately. I had 100 thoughts, none of them good, and all of them circling the same question he'd just asked. Why would she do this? Why now? Why that way? I watched him carefully, the way his shoulders sagged, the way his mouth tightened as he kept rereading the forged test. "Jason," I said quietly, "did something happen between you two recently? Something more than arguing?" He hesitated, and that hesitation told me there was more. Said, "She's not the same person I married," he finally said. "She's been distant for months. Secretive. She keeps her phone on silent face down. She goes for long drives and doesn't tell me where. Every time I bring it up, she says I'm being controlling." "And you're not," I said. He let out a breath, long and tired. I didn't want to believe any of it. I thought maybe it was pregnancy stress. But then last night, when she told me the baby might not be mine, he rubbed his eyes. It felt like the ground just split open under me. I reached across the table, resting my hand on his wrist. "We're going to figure this out. All of it." He nodded slowly, but his gaze drifted back to the forged test. "Dad, why would she bring you into this? Why humiliate you at the shower? Why this? Because, I said, swallowing thickly. She wants to isolate you. Someone who wants control often does that. Jason stared at me, then looked toward the ceiling as if he could see through it, up to where she slept. She said last night that she's tired of people interfering. She said once the baby is here, she doesn't want anyone questioning her decisions. That's not normal, I said. Not like this. Not with lies this elaborate. He brushed both hands through his hair, and when he looked at me again, something had settled in his expression, fear mixed with dawning clarity. Dad, I think she planned this. Not just the shower thing. All of it. I didn't want to agree, but I also wasn't going to lie to him. Maybe. He stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. I keep replaying last night. After she told me the baby might not be mine, I asked if she already knew who the father was. She wouldn't answer. She just walked upstairs and slammed the door. Then I heard her talking to someone on the phone, whispering. Did you hear what she said? No. Just enough to know she wasn't talking to family. I folded the forged test carefully, slid it back into the envelope. Jason, I said softly. Listen to me. She's manipulating you. She's trying to control the narrative before the truth comes out. The truth, he whispered. I don't even know what it is anymore. We'll find it. He sat again, leaning forward. I want a real test, for the baby. And for us. I want to prove she forged this. You will, I said. But you need to be careful. If she's already shown she'll lie like this, she won't react well to being confronted. I know. He paused. Dad, what about the note? What she wrote? I thought about the neat, angry handwriting. Thought you deserved to know who's really overstepping. She wanted to hurt me, I said simply. She wanted to embarrass me. But the moment she forged that test, she turned this from cruelty into strategy. Jason's jaw tightened. I'm not letting her take this any further. I want you to stay involved. Don't let her push you away. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps upstairs, slow, careful. Then the creak of the floorboard near the landing. Jason looked toward the stairs. She's awake. Let her come down, I said. We're not doing anything wrong. He nodded. But I could see the tension in his shoulders. A moment later, Emily appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Her hair was tied back, her expression blank, almost too calm. She wore a soft blue robe and held her phone loosely in one hand. Oh, she said when she saw me, feigning surprise. You're early. Jason stiffened. I told you he was coming. She smiled thinly. Yes, but I thought you were bluffing. You do that sometimes. I don't bluff, he said. She stepped into the kitchen, her eyes moving from him to the pile of papers on the table. So, she said quietly, you showed him. No. Jason answered. You left it for him. That's different. She shrugged, as if the distinction bored her. The truth always comes out sooner or later. Jason pointed at the forged test. This isn't the truth. She tilted her head slightly. You sure about that? The date's wrong, he said. The lab didn't exist then. For the first time something flickered across her face. Surprise, irritation. Maybe both. Well, she said slowly. Memories get fuzzy. Maybe I mixed up the years. You said you found it in Mom's things, Jason said. She didn't even live in this state at the time. Emily's jaw tightened. I don't need to justify anything to either of you. You do if you want to be trusted, I said. She turned to me sharply. With all due respect, this is a family matter. I am family. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. And you tried to remove me from it. Jason stepped closer to her. Emily, we're getting real tests done. All of us. And we're getting professional verification on everything you gave me. Her face went cold. If you do that, she whispered, everything will change. You need to think carefully. No, he said, voice steady. You need to think carefully. She stared at him for a long time, her breathing shallow. Then she looked back at me, her expression unreadable. "You're making a mistake," she said, quietly. Jason shook his head. "No, for the first time in months. I'm not." Emily's grip tightened on her phone. "Fine," she said, turning away. "But don't say I didn't warn you." She walked back upstairs without another word. When she was out of sight, Jason let out a shaking breath. "Dad," he whispered. "Something's very wrong," I nodded. Because now I felt it too. She hadn't reacted like someone caught lying. She'd reacted like someone whose plan had been interrupted. And that scared me more than the forge test ever could. I stayed at the table for a long moment after Emily disappeared upstairs, listening to the soft creaks in the ceiling as she walked. Slow, deliberate steps, each one sounding like she was thinking, planning. Jason didn't move. He just stared at the staircase as though expecting her to come storming back down. When she didn't, he turned to me and whispered, "Dad, I don't know who she is anymore." "You know exactly who she is," I said quietly. "You're just seeing it clearly for the first time." He pulled out a chair and sank into it. His hands covered his face. "I don't understand how it got this bad. We were fine last year. We wanted a baby. We tried for months. And then when she finally got pregnant, it was like something snapped." I picked up the envelope again, heavier now under the weight of what it represented. "Jason, this wasn't sudden. People don't forge documents overnight. This has been building." He looked up, eyes tired. "You're saying she's been planning all this?" I'm saying. I began carefully. "That you don't forge a DNA test, unless you're trying to set a foundation for something bigger." I paused, watching how the words hit him. "Custody, maybe." He swallowed hard. "You think she wants to take the baby from me?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I know manipulation when I see it." I hesitated before adding, "And I know isolation. She tried to humiliate me in front of your friends, your co-workers, your entire circle. Why would she want to do that, unless she was trying to limit your support system?" Jason stared at the table again. "She told me last week that she doesn't want anyone else influencing how we raise the baby. She said my family is too involved." He sighed. "She meant you." I nodded slowly. "That's what she wants you to believe." But Jason, something about the way she reacted this morning. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't guilty. It was strategic. He glanced at me, like she already had a plan for this. "Yes." Jason stood abruptly, walking to the window, pulling the curtain back an inch. Outside, the neighborhood was still quiet. A jogger passed by slowly, unaware of the tension choking this house. "Dad, what if she's seeing someone else? What if that's why she doesn't care how I react?" "Do you want the truth or comfort?" I asked. "Truth, then yes," I said. "I think there's someone else." Jason didn't flinch. He just nodded slowly, like he'd suspected it for a long time but needed someone else to say it aloud. "Last night," he said. "After she went upstairs, I heard her crying. Not loudly, more like frustration. I went to check on her, and she pushed me away. She said, 'You will understand soon.'" "That sounds like someone who's already accepted a new reality," I said. "And is trying to push you toward accepting it too." He pressed his forehead against the window glass. "Dad, I thought marriage meant something different than this." I took a deep breath. "Marriage only works when both people want it to. You've been trying to hold the entire structure together alone." He let the curtain fall back into place. "What do we do now?" "First," I said, "you get real DNA tests, for the baby. For yourself. And I'll get one too if it helps you put this forgery to rest." "I don't need a test for us," he said quickly. "I know you're my father." "I know," I said softly. "But someone is trying to rewrite your reality. Facts help steady things." Jason sat again, more resolute now. "Okay. I'll schedule the test today. But what about Emily? She won't let me do it without a fight. She'll blow up." Yes, I said. She will, and you need to be prepared for that. He looked toward the stairs again. Dad, I don't know if she'll stay calm this time. Before I could respond, footsteps sounded again, faster, more pointed this time. Emily descended the stairs with a purpose, not the slow, careful walk from before. She had her phone in one hand, her jaw set tight. When she reached the bottom step, she looked directly at Jason. I need to talk to you, she said. Not a request, a command. Jason stood, but didn't move toward her. We can talk here. No, she said sharply. Privately, he shook his head. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my father. Her eyes flashed. This isn't about him. Everything you've done this week has been about him, Jason said. So sit down. Her nostrils flared. But after a tense moment she walked slowly to the kitchen table and lowered herself into the chair across from him. Her robe fell loosely around her shoulders, and she clutched her phone like it was a weapon she hadn't decided whether to use yet. I made some calls this morning, she said. Finally. To who? Jason asked. That's none of your business. Her tone was ice. But I need you to understand something. If you go through with all these tests, you're going to regret it. Jason didn't react. Is that a threat? It's a warning, she said. There's a difference. He leaned forward. Explain the difference. She looked at him, then at me, then back at him. If you push this, if you drag our family name into some investigation, you're going to bring things up that should stay buried, things from years ago, things your mother didn't want anyone to know. Jason stiffened. What things? Emily looked directly at me now, her expression sharp. Ask him. Jason turned to me instantly. Dad, what is she talking about? I felt my chest tighten. I don't know, I said carefully. Yes, Emily said quietly, leaning back. You do. Jason looked between us. What's going on? What is she implying? She's implying something she can't prove, I said firmly. Because it isn't true. Emily lifted her phone. I have messages, photos, documents, things you might be interested in. Jason frowned. What documents? She smirked. Your mother wasn't the saint you think she was. My stomach dropped. Emily, don't you dare bring my wife into this. Oh, she said, with a little shrug. I think she's already in it. In ways you both haven't accepted yet. Jason's voice cracked. What are you talking about? Emily tapped her phone screen. If you do these tests, if you push me, I will release everything, everything your mother hid, everything she lied about. I will destroy whatever illusion you're clinging to. Jason stared at her, horrified. Why would you do that? Because, she said coldly, I am done being the only one telling the truth in this house. I leaned forward. Emily, enough. She smiled faintly. It's only enough when I say it is. Jason stood. Dad, she's unstable. Emily let out a laugh, soft, quiet, chilling. Unstable? No, Jason, I'm prepared. She rose from her chair, lifting her phone. You want war? Fine. But don't blame me for what comes next. She walked away up the stairs, leaving silence behind her. Jason turned to me, face pale. Dad, what did my mother hide? What did Emily find? I looked at him, the weight of years pressing against my ribs, because I did know. And Emily had just made a very dangerous mistake. She had no idea what she was threatening to expose. But I did. Jason stood there waiting for an answer. I didn't want to give. The past sat in my throat like a stone, something I'd carried for decades, tucked away where it couldn't hurt anyone. Emily's threat dug right into that place. I could feel it. She didn't know the truth. She couldn't, but she knew just enough to weaponize suspicion. And suspicion, when fed to someone already hurting, could ruin everything. Dad. Jason said again, softer this time. What did Mom hide? I pulled out a chair and gestured for him to sit. Before I say anything, you need to breathe. He sat, though he didn't look any calmer. Your mother didn't do anything wrong, I began carefully. But there were things she didn't want you to know because she thought it would change how you saw her. She carried guilt she shouldn't have carried. Guilt about what? He pressed. About her past, I said quietly. Things before you were born. Before we married. Jason rubbed his hands together. Emily said there were documents. Photos. What would she even have? I took a deep breath. When your mother was 19, she got involved with someone she shouldn't have, a man much older, married. It lasted a few months. She ended it when she realized he wasn't going to leave his family. She didn't talk about it because she was embarrassed. Ashamed. Jason's brow furrowed. Okay, but what does that have to do with me? Or with now? Nothing, I said. Absolutely nothing. It was years before she and I ever met. He exhaled slowly. Then why does Emily think she can use it? Because she's desperate, I said. She's losing control of the story she built. She wants to throw as much chaos at us as possible. Jason leaned back, staring at the ceiling. So she found old photos or letters. Mom kept something in the storage boxes. Probably, I said. Your mother kept everything. She wasn't hiding it from you out of deceit. Just out of fear of judgment. Jason shook his head. That doesn't warrant this kind of threat. No, I said. It doesn't, which is why this isn't about your mother. It's about Emily needing leverage. Jason stood abruptly and walked to the sink, gripping the counter. Dad, I can't live like this. I can't bring a child into this. He paused. If it's even mine, I walked to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. We're going to get answers. But Jason, you need to understand something. Emily isn't operating from logic anymore. She's reacting from fear. Identity fear. Security fear. Loss fear. Someone doesn't behave like this unless they're terrified of something becoming known. Jason turned slightly. But what? What could she possibly be hiding that's big enough to justify forging a DNA test? Threatening me. Threatening you. Before I could answer, a sudden sound cut through the room, a door shutting upstairs, not loud, controlled, but firm, followed by footsteps, faster this time. Jason glanced toward the stairs. She's coming back. We waited. The footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs, like she was listening, deciding whether to come down or not. Then a creak, another step. And then she appeared again, holding something small, flat, and white, an envelope. She descended slowly, her expression calm in a way that didn't match the tension in her shoulders. I think we should accelerate things, she said, placing the envelope on the table. Since you two insist on creating drama, I'd rather get ahead of it. Jason eyed the envelope. What is that? Proof, she said. And instructions. I stepped forward. Emily, if you have something to say it. Stop playing games. She met my eyes, and for the first time all morning, something vulnerable flickered there, only for a second. But I saw it. Then, it vanished behind the mask she'd been wearing for months. I made an appointment, she said. Tomorrow morning, for a prenatal DNA test. Jason's jaw dropped. You actually scheduled it? Yes, she said, before you turn this into a spectacle. She nudged the envelope toward him. The details are inside. You'll need to sign some things. Jason looked at her carefully. Why cooperate now? What changed? She paused. Her grip tightened on the back of a chair. Because last night, after you left the bedroom, I realized something. Her voice trembled, barely noticeable, but I caught it. I realized that, no matter what I do, you're going to find out the truth, and I'd rather be there when you do. A strange quiet filled the kitchen. Not peace, just quiet. A pause before something heavier. Jason opened the envelope slowly. Inside were 2 papers, a test appointment, confirmation, and another folded note. He set the first paper aside and opened the note. As he read it, his face drained of color. "Jason?" I asked. He handed me the note with shaking fingers. It was written in Emily's handwriting. Small, precise, fearful. "If the test shows the baby isn't yours, you need to know something before you hate me completely. I didn't cheat on you the way you think. It wasn't another relationship. It wasn't intentional. I've been trying to tell you, but I didn't know how. Please don't judge me until you hear everything." My eyes lifted to hers. She wasn't looking at me. She wasn't looking at Jason. She was staring at the floor, her lips pressed together so tightly they trembled. "Emily," I whispered. "What are you saying?" Jason leaned closer. "Emily, what does this mean?" She lifted her head, eyes glistening. Not angry, not cold, broken. "It means," she said, in a voice barely audible, "that something happened months before we found out I was pregnant. Something I didn't consent to." The room froze. Jason blinked. "What?" Emily wrapped her arms around herself. "I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to see me differently. I didn't want you to blame me. But I wasn't unfaithful. I wasn't with someone. It wasn't like that." Jason stumbled back a step. "Emily, what are you saying?" She finally met his eyes. "There was an incident," she said, "and I never reported it. I couldn't. I was ashamed. And when I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I didn't know who the father was. I didn't know how to tell you. So I lied, and then the lies kept building, and the fear kept growing, and I kept losing control." Jason stared at her, breath shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to feel obligated to stay with me," she whispered. "I didn't want you to raise a child that wasn't yours out of guilt, and I didn't want you to look at me like I was ruined." She broke. A silent tear slipped down her cheek. Jason stepped forward slowly. "Emily." But she lifted a hand. "Don't come closer. Not yet. Not until the test. I need you to know the truth first." I watched Jason's face shift. Anger, confusion, heartbreak, disbelief, all at once. And then Emily said something that chilled me to my bones. "I know who did it," she whispered. "And he's closer to us than you think." Jason froze. The words didn't sink in all at once. They seemed to land in layers, each one heavier than the last. He stared at Emily as if she'd spoken in another language. "Closer than we think," he repeated, voice faint. "What does that mean? Who are you talking about?" Emily swallowed hard, her hand trembling as she wiped her cheek. She didn't speak right away. She glanced at me, then looked away quickly, as if the sight of me brought something painful to the surface. Her fingers tightened around the back of the chair, knuckles white. "Emily," I said gently, "you need to tell us. If someone hurt you, we need to know who." "I know," she whispered. I need a second." Jason stepped toward her but stopped halfway, unsure whether she wanted comfort or space. "This isn't something you drop halfway," he said softly. "You can't say something like that and go silent. We need to understand." Emily nodded shakily. "I will tell you, I promise. But you both need to know that this isn't just about the baby or the tests. It's about safety. Mine, yours." She looked at Jason. "The reason I've been acting off distant, it's because he's been contacting me." Jason's jaw clenched. "Who?" She took a long, steadying breath. "I didn't know who he was at first. I met him by accident months ago, when I was out running errands. He recognized our last name. Yours, said he used to know your family. I didn't think anything of it. He seemed normal, friendly, just someone from the past." My chest tightened. Something prickled at the back of my neck. "Jason," I said quietly, "pay attention to what she's saying." "I am." Jason murmured, though his eyes never left Emily. Emily's voice shook as she continued. "A few weeks later, something happened. Something I didn't see coming. I don't want to explain all the details right now, but afterward I tried to cut off contact. I blocked him, avoided places he might be, but he didn't stop. He kept messaging me, calling me, saying he wanted to make things right, saying he wanted me to tell the truth. Jason's face went pale. Truth about what? Emily choked on the answer. She looked at me again. Really looked. And I understood something in that moment. Something cold and terrible. Emily, I said. Carefully. Tell us his name. Her voice cracked. He said he knew your wife. Years ago. I felt my pulse thud. Jason turned sharply toward me. Dad, he said. What is she talking about? Emily closed her eyes. He said he knew her, and he knew you, that he used to run in the same circles back then. No, I whispered before she even said the name. That's not possible. Emily's next words came out hollow, like she hated every syllable. He said his name was Frank. The room tilted. The air went thin. Jason blinked. Frank who? I didn't speak. Emily's gaze shifted to me. He said you'd know. Jason turned fully. Dad, do you? My throat tightened. It had been nearly 40 years since I'd heard that name spoken out loud in this house. Nearly 40 years of silence, distance, and quiet fear about a man who didn't understand boundaries, didn't understand rejection, didn't understand no. Dad, Jason repeated, voice rising. Who is Frank? I sat down slowly, because, standing suddenly, felt impossible. Frank Rourke, I said. Your mother knew him when she was 19. Before we met, he was the man I told you about. The married one. Jason's face twisted in confusion. Wait, Emily is saying that he... Emily nodded, her eyes red and pleading. He approached me that day. He recognized the last name. He said he remembered your mother well, too well. He kept talking about her, about their time together, like he was reliving it right in front of me. It made me uncomfortable, so I tried to leave. He grabbed my arm. Not violently, just enough to stop me. He asked if I was your wife. Jason stepped back, horrified. My God, Emily continued, words tumbling shakily. He said your mother owed him a conversation. I didn't know what he meant. So I pulled away and left. I didn't tell you because it seemed like a strange man with an outdated grudge. Nothing more, but then he showed up again. Near the grocery store, near the clinic, even in the parking lot outside my work. Jason's voice sharpened. Emily, why didn't you tell me any of this? Because I thought I could handle it, she said. And because I thought it would stop. Her hand slipped from the chair, and she wrapped her arms around herself. But then, she said quietly, the night it happened, he said something that terrified me. Something about your mother. Something about revenge. I don't know if he meant it literally, or if he was just saying things to scare me. But Jason stepped closer, voice trembling. Emily, did he hurt you? Emily nodded once, the smallest movement I'd ever seen. Jason took a breath that sounded like a sob. Emily, why didn't you tell me? Because he said, if I told anyone, especially you, he'd finish what she started. I didn't know what he meant. I still don't, but I was scared. So I lied. I lied about everything, because I thought it would protect you. Jason pressed his palm to his forehead. Emily, God, he said he'd ruin your family. She continued, that he'd drag your father down the way she dragged him. I didn't know what it meant. But I knew he believed it. I could see it in his eyes. I felt something cold settle in my spine. A memory flickered, my wife crying one night in 1984, telling me she needed to move, needed distance, needed safety. She never explained fully. I never questioned it. Now I wondered if I should have. Jason wiped his face with his sleeve. So all this, your behavior, the tests, the lies, it was fear and shame. She whispered, and guilt. I thought if the baby wasn't yours, you would see me differently. I thought you'd see me as damaged, and I couldn't bear that." Jason reached for her hand cautiously. She let him take it. "Emily," he said, voice breaking, "you should have told me. We could have faced this together." "I know," she said, sobbing quietly. "I know." They stood there, holding each other. And for a moment the room softened. Just a moment, because then Emily lifted her head and whispered, "He called me again this morning." Jason stiffened. "What?" Emily pulled her phone from her robe pocket. She turned the screen toward us. A missed call. 6:12 a.m. A number neither of us recognized. Jason frowned. "Did he leave a message?" Emily nodded. Jason swallowed. "Play it." She pressed the screen. A man's voice. Older now, gravelly trembling, with something between anger and satisfaction, filled the kitchen. "Emily, tell Jason I'll be seeing him soon. And tell the old man I haven't forgotten what he stole from me." The message ended. Jason looked at me, eyes wide with terror. "Dad," he whispered, voice barely holding together. "What did Mom take from him?" I stared at the phone, and I realized something far worse than anything we'd uncovered so far. This wasn't about Emily. This wasn't about the baby. This wasn't even about the past. Frank was coming back, for all of us. The message echoed in the kitchen, long after the call ended. Jason's hands were trembling on the counter. His knuckles white, I could feel the tension in my own shoulders, the way my chest constricted with the memory of Frank Rourke, a man I hadn't seen in nearly 40 years, a man whose presence still left a shadow over every decision we'd made. Jason looked at me, fear written clearly across his face. "Dad, what do we do?" he said. "He hasn't forgotten what you stole from him." "What did you steal?" I shook my head slowly. "Nothing. Your mother," she ended it, before anything serious happened. "I was never involved." Frank believed otherwise. He's held on to that grudge all these years, but whatever he thinks I stole, it's nothing compared to the chaos he's willing to cause now. Emily's voice shook. "I knew he'd come back. I didn't think it would be this soon, or this direct." Jason ran a hand through his hair. "This is beyond everything. This is dangerous. He's talking about us. He knows about the baby. He knows about you. He's coming for all of us." I rubbed my temples. The old memories of Frank came rushing back. The cold smirk, the way he always carried himself like he owned the room, the subtle threats hidden in casual words. He had never forgiven your mother, and now, after all these years, he had a new weapon. Emily, our family, the baby. Emily sank into a chair. "He's obsessed, Dad. He always was. I thought I could handle it by keeping distance. But now he knows I'm here, that I'm not alone." Jason's voice dropped. "We need protection. Police. Security. Something." I shook my head slowly. "Frank isn't going to stop until he thinks he's righted a wrong. The police might not understand. He'll present it as a past grievance, a misunderstanding. He's clever, manipulative. I know him." Emily leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. "I never wanted you involved, Dad. I thought I could do it alone. But he knows about you now. He knows your name. That makes all of this more dangerous." Jason's jaw tightened. "We can't wait for him to make a move. We have to be proactive. DNA tests, police, whatever it takes." I nodded. "Yes, but first, we need to control the narrative. Don't let him isolate anyone. Don't let him manipulate the story before we have facts." Emily's hands shook as she opened her phone. I have some messages from him. I blocked him, but he's been persistent." I gestured toward her. "Show us everything. Every message. Every email. Every call. We need to know what we're dealing with." She nodded, scrolling through her phone. Her face paled as she opened messages that made my blood run cold. Threats thinly veiled as reminders. references to the past, to your mother, to me, every line calculated to unsettle, to intimidate, to remind us of his power. Jason read over her shoulder, his breathing quickening. This, this is more than a grudge. This is stalking. This is harassment. Emily swallowed hard. And it's not just words. I saw him once. At the grocery store. Not close, not directly. But he was there. Watching, smiling, like he knew I'd see him, and he wanted me to. I felt a chill run down my spine. 40 years and he still had that same unsettling presence, that same ability to make you question your safety, your choices, your sanity. Jason's voice shook. We need to act fast. Tomorrow we get the DNA tests. Police, if necessary. And maybe, he looked at me, searching my face. Maybe we confront him before he escalates further. Emily shook her head. No. Confrontation that will only provoke him. He wants drama. He thrives on it. We need strategy, patience, control. I nodded. She's right. We don't escalate without a plan. Frank isn't a man you reason with. He's a man you outthink, outmaneuver. Jason looked between us, the fear in his eyes slowly being replaced by determination. Then we plan. We document. We stay alert, and we make sure that baby and Emily are safe. No mistakes. Emily exhaled slowly, a tremor in her shoulders. I didn't want to involve you, Dad. I thought I could protect myself. But now, he's not just after me. He's coming for the family. I sat back, taking in the weight of everything. 40 years of past mistakes, half-truths, grudges, and now the next generation was caught in the crossfire. And I realized something terrifying. Frank didn't just want revenge. He wanted control. He wanted to rewrite history, and the baby he saw as leverage. Jason leaned closer. So we do the DNA test. We get protection, and we document everything. Every contact, every call, every message, right? Yes, I said firmly. Everything. And we stay united. If Frank thinks he can isolate anyone, he's wrong. We're stronger than that. Emily nodded slowly. I never wanted to drag you into this, Dad. I'm sorry. I shook my head. No, you did the right thing by telling us. Now we can protect you. Now we can protect all of us. But we can't wait. He's already making moves. The three of us sat there in tense silence. The air was heavy, the kind of silence that precedes a storm. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant car on the street felt amplified. Frank was out there, somewhere, thinking, planning, watching, and we were left with one choice: be ready or risk losing everything. Jason didn't sleep that night. I heard him pacing the hallway around 3 a.m., his footsteps uneven, stopping and starting as if he kept replaying the voicemail in his mind. I didn't sleep either. How could I? Emily's room was just down the hall, and every small sound made me think Frank was already here, already trying to wedge himself deeper into our lives. By sunrise, the house was silent again. A stillness hung in the air, the kind you only feel after a night of restless fear. When I finally stepped out of my room, I found Jason sitting at the kitchen table, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor as if he'd been there for hours. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked. He shook his head without looking up. "No, I kept thinking, what if he shows up? But if says to get to her. To the baby." He rubbed his face. "Dad, I've never felt this powerless before." I sat across from him. "You're not powerless. We're going to handle this carefully. We're going to protect Emily, and that child, whatever the results show." Jason nodded, slowly, but didn't look convinced. "Where is she?" "She's still asleep," I said. "I checked on her an hour ago." He swallowed. "Good." We stayed there in the dim morning light, neither of us speaking. It was a heavy, unspoken truth. This situation was bigger than us, older than us, A grudge, decades old, twisted into something dangerous, something unpredictable. Around 7:30, Emily walked in, wrapped in a blanket, hair messy, eyes swollen. She lowered herself into the chair beside Jason and took his hand. "Did you sleep at all?" Jason asked gently. "A little," she said, "but I kept dreaming he was outside the window. Just standing there watching." Jason stiffened. "Emily, it was just a dream," she whispered. "But it felt real." I leaned forward. "Today we take control. First the DNA test. Then we go from there. We're not going to let him dictate anything." Emily nodded. "I don't want to be scared anymore. I want this to end." Jason cleared his throat. "We'll get the test done this morning. No delays." We left the house together around 9 o'clock. Jason insisted on driving, checking the mirrors every few seconds as we pulled out of the driveway. It wasn't paranoia, not after everything we'd learned. Every unfamiliar car made us tense. Every glance from a stranger felt intrusive. At the clinic, the nurse called us in one by one, her tone professional, completely unaware of the chaos behind our visit. Jason and Emily held hands tightly the entire time. When the nurse finally finished the paperwork and sealed the samples, she said, "Results should be back in 2 days, 2 days, 48 hours. It felt like an eternity. When we walked out into the parking lot, Jason froze. A car was parked across the street, not close enough to be suspicious, but positioned perfectly enough to see the clinic entrance. A man sat in the driver's seat, wearing sunglasses, staring directly toward us. Emily gasped. "That's him." Jason's whole body tensed. "Frank?" Emily nodded, gripping his arm. "I'm sure of it." For a moment, none of us moved. The three of us stood there, exposed in plain view, with Frank sitting calmly across the street, unmoving, like he'd been waiting. Jason stepped forward, instinctively protectively. "Stay behind me." His voice was low, shaking slightly. But before he could take another step, the man in the car started the engine. He didn't drive toward us. He didn't speed away. He rolled forward slowly, deliberately, as if to make sure we saw him, as if this was another message. Just when I thought he'd pull up to the light and turn away, he stopped, directly across from us. The window rolled down halfway. Jason grabbed Emily and pulled her close. I moved in front of them both without thinking. We held our breath. The man leaned forward slightly, just enough for us to see the lower part of his face. A grin. Thin, stretched, cruel, frank. After 40 years, there he was, older, grayer, heavier, but unmistakably him. He didn't speak. He didn't wave. He just grinned, like he was savoring this moment. Then the light changed and he rolled the window back up, turned left and disappeared into traffic as calmly as if he were running errands. Emily's breath hitched. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't live like this." Jason put his arms around her. "We're going to fix this, I swear. He can't just show up like that." "But he can," she said through tears. "He already is." I steadied myself. "Jason, get her home. I'll call a lawyer, and the police. And we're setting up cameras. Every entrance, every room, everything." Jason nodded. "Dad, I've never felt hatred like this." He looked at her like she was prey. "He wants control," I said quietly. "That's all he's ever wanted." When we got back home, I started making calls. Lawyers, security, even a retired detective I knew from years ago. Everyone agreed. Document everything. Prepare. Do not confront him. Not yet. Around noon, as we were installing the first camera on the front porch, Emily stepped outside holding her phone. She looked pale again. "Jason. Dad." Her voice trembled. "He sent something." My stomach tightened. "What did he send?" She slowly turned the phone so we could see. A text message. Just 4 words, but enough to send chills through all of us. "Hope you enjoyed today. Jason grabbed the phone. How the hell did he get your number again? Emily shook her head helplessly. I blocked him. I swear I blocked him. I stared at the message, feeling a weight settle on my chest. Frank wasn't hiding. He wasn't pretending. He was telling us plainly. He was watching. He was waiting. He was planning. Next moves we couldn't see coming. Jason looked at me. Desperation in his eyes. Dad, what does he want? What is he trying to do? I exhaled slowly. I don't know, I said. But he's not just here to scare us. Frank never does anything without a plan. Emily swallowed hard. Then what's his plan? I looked at the street, the cars passing, the quiet neighborhood suddenly feeling unfamiliar and hostile, and I realized something beneath the fear. Frank wasn't just circling, he was setting the stage. Something bigger was coming, and we were already in the middle of it. By mid-afternoon, the house felt smaller than it ever had. Every window shade was half closed, every door double-checked, every little noise making us jump. I kept telling myself to stay calm, to think clearly, but every few minutes I'd picture that grin Frank gave us in the parking lot, like he'd been savoring the moment for decades. Emily sat curled on the couch, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, even though the living room wasn't cold. Jason hovered close to her, pacing back and forth, checking his phone repeatedly like he was waiting for something, anything that made sense. Around 3 o'clock, his phone buzzed. He snatched it up so quickly, Emily flinched. It's just Tom, he said breathlessly. He's asking about the plans for next weekend. He dropped the phone onto the coffee table, rubbing his eyes. I can't talk to anyone right now. What am I supposed to say? Hey man. Sorry. Can't make the cookout. My wife's being stalked by a man from my mother's past. Emily lowered her head. Jason. I'm sorry. I never wanted any of this. He knelt beside her. Emily, stop apologizing. You did nothing wrong. He's the one who's sick. He's the one causing this. I still brought him into your life. No, Jason said firmly. He forced himself into ours. I watched them quietly from the armchair, a familiar ache tightening in my chest. The scene reminded me of something I had once seen between Jason's mother and me. Comfort whispered in a storm we never expected. And just like now, that storm had a name. Frank. My phone buzzed next. A voicemail icon. Unknown number. I felt my stomach tighten. Jason noticed. Dad? Who is it? I played it on speaker. A faint sound crackled through the line, like someone adjusting a microphone. Then a voice I hadn't heard directly in almost 40 years spoke. Older, slower, but unmistakable. Mark, he said. My name, not old man, not your father, but my name. You haven't called. I expected you to. The air in the room stilled. I'm patient, he continued. But I don't like being ignored, you know that. I told you once. A long time ago. A breathy chuckle. Remember? Then the voicemail ended. Jason's jaw dropped. He called you too? Emily covered her mouth. Oh God. I just sat there, holding the phone, hearing the echo of Frank's voice over and over. A voice that used to send chills down my wife's spine. A voice that now threatened my son, my daughter-in-law, my soon-to-be grandchild. He's escalating, I said quietly. This isn't just intimidation anymore. He's pushing for engagement. He wants a reaction from us. Jason ran a hand through his hair. What does he want us to do? Call him back? Beg for mercy? He wants attention, I said. He wants to drag us into his narrative. He always did, but we're not giving him that. Emily shook her head. But he already has us. He knows where we are. He knows everything. We don't know how much he knows, I said. Not yet. Jason turned to me sharply. Dad, when you said Mom needed distance back then, when you said she wanted to move, was it because of him? I didn't answer immediately. The truth had been buried for decades, but now the earth was cracking open, demanding to be unearthed. Yes, I said finally. It was because of him. Jason blinked. You told me he was just an old fling, she ended. That he didn't take it well. He didn't, I said. But that wasn't the worst of it. Emily looked up, fear tightening her expression. What was the worst of it? I took a breath. My hands trembled a little. Age, maybe. Or something older. Your mother tried to leave that entire chapter of her life behind, I said. But Frank didn't let her. He showed up at our apartment one night in '86. Drunk, angry. He blamed her for everything. His failing marriage, his job, his life. He said she ruined him. That she owed him. I wasn't home at the time. Jason's face tightened. What happened? She called me afterward. She was shaking. She said he didn't hurt her. Not physically. But he cornered her. Said things to her. Threatened her. And she said she saw something in his eyes that terrified her. I swallowed. She didn't want to file a report. They said it would only make him angry. So we moved. Lived quietly, without telling anyone. Jason stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Why didn't you ever tell me that? Because she didn't want you to grow up afraid, I said. And because for decades I thought he was out of our lives for good. Emily lowered her head. He isn't. No, I said. Clearly not. We sat in a heavy silence, the kind that presses on your chest. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Soft, polite, 2 taps. Jason sprang to his feet. Don't answer it. I checked the peephole. An officer stood on the porch. Just a police officer. I let out a shaky breath and opened the door. Mr. Rollins? He asked. Yes. He held up a card. We received a report from a neighbor about a suspicious vehicle parked near your driveway earlier today, matching a description linked to a prior disturbance call. Jason and Emily were standing behind me, pale. What kind of description? I asked. A silver Nissan, older model. Male driver, 60s. Observed, circling the block twice. Jason exhaled sharply. That's him. The officer nodded. We can file a report officially if you'd like. We can also put a patrol car on the street overnight. Yes, I said. Please, both. He took our information, asked a few questions, and left. As his cruiser pulled away, Jason collapsed onto the couch beside Emily. He's watching the house, Jason said quietly. Dad, he's watching us. Emily curled into him. I just want this to stop. I want him gone. I sat across from them, hands folded tightly. He won't stop on his own. Frank never stops until he thinks he's won. Jason looked at me. Then, what do we do? I took a breath, feeling something shift in me. Something both comforting and terrifying. We're done reacting, waiting, hoping he leaves us alone. Jason swallowed. Then what? We find out what he really wants, what he believes we stole. What this is really about, Emily whispered. And we do that how? I looked toward the window, toward the street where Frank had been, by going back. I said softly, to the start, to the past your mother never wanted you to know. Jason stared at me, confused. What do you mean? Tomorrow morning, I said, we're driving to the town where your mother met Frank, to the place this all began, to the people who knew them. Jason's voice shook. You think someone there knows something? I think, I said quietly, that your mother hid something from me, something she thought would die with her, and I think Frank has held on to that secret for 40 years. Emily's face went pale. What kind of secret? I looked at Jason, at his eyes, at the fear and anger swirling together. I don't know, I said, but whatever it is, he believes it's worth ruining our lives over. Jason's hands trembled. Emily gripped his arm, and in that moment we all felt it. Tomorrow wasn't going to give us answers. It was going to change everything. The next morning, we left early. The drive was tense, the air in the car thick with unspoken questions. Jason kept glancing at Emily, worry etched into every line of his face, while she stared out the window, gripping her blanket tight, almost afraid to breathe. I drove slowly, hands tight on the wheel, replaying every memory of Frank Rourke, every whispered warning, every shadow he'd cast over our lives, even decades ago. We arrived in the small town just after sunrise. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that made everything feel fragile, like a single wrong step could shatter it. I parked near a small cafe on the corner, the place your mother had once told me she met Frank by chance. Jason and Emily stayed close, flinching at every passerby, as if they feared he might be there, lurking behind a corner. I took a deep breath. Stay calm. We're here to find out the truth. That's all. No reaction, no confrontation. Remember that. Emily nodded, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. Jason's jaw was tight, his knuckles white around the edge of the car door. Inside the cafe, the smell of coffee and baked goods was normal, comforting, and yet, it felt off, like stepping into a world that didn't belong to us anymore. I approached the counter, asking the barista if they remembered a man named Frank Rourke from the early '80s. She paused, brows furrowed. "Frank Rourke?" she said slowly. Yeah, I think I remember. He used to come in sometimes. Quiet, a bit intense. Not unpleasant. Just, someone you'd notice. Why?" I explained carefully. "We're trying to understand something that happened decades ago, something your cafe might hold records of." She hesitated, then nodded. "I can check. We keep some old ledgers and receipts. Wait here." She disappeared into a back room. Jason and Emily sat at a nearby table, eyes scanning the cafe like they expected Frank to appear any second. Emily whispered, "Dad, what if he's already here?" Jason shook his head. "We have to believe he's not. Otherwise we'll lose our minds before anything even happens." Minutes passed like hours. Finally the barista returned carrying a small dusty ledger. "Here," she said. "I found his name. He ordered coffee here. Sometimes with a woman named, well, it's just a first name. Marianne. Dates. I can't tell if these are complete records, but it's all we have." I took the ledger with trembling hands, flipping through pages filled with faded ink. There it was. Frank Rourke. Entries spanning months, often just coffee, sometimes small notes in the margin, and then a name I didn't expect, your mother's Elizabeth. Dates overlapping, entries almost daily for 2 months. Emily leaned over, reading the names. Her eyes widened. "That's her. That's her. That's Mom." I swallowed hard. "Yes, and these aren't friendly casual visits. Look at the timing. Look at the notes in the margins." He was keeping track of her, obsessively. Jason's voice was low, barely audible. "So, all this time, she wasn't just trying to forget him, she was being careful." "Yes," I said. "She knew he would never let it go. That even after decades, he would come for someone he thought owed him, or someone connected to her." Emily's hands shook. "But that doesn't explain what he did to me, why he came after me." I looked at her. "He thinks you're the extension of the past. He believes he's settling a score that was never his to settle. And now, he's trying to rewrite history. Control the story. Control all of us." Jason clenched his fists. "So everything he's done, the stalking, the messages, the threats, it's all about revenge. Not just on Mom, but on us." "Yes," I said quietly. "And the baby, he sees the child as leverage. Proof of loyalty, proof of control. It's twisted, but that's how he operates." Emily leaned back, covering her face with her hands. "I can't believe this. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect him. I thought we were safe." "You are safe," I said firmly. "Because we're facing it together. That's what Frank doesn't want. He wants fear, isolation. We give him neither." Jason placed his hand over hers. "We'll protect you, all of us. And that baby, we'll make sure he can't touch any of you." The barista cleared her throat. I hope that helps. I never knew it was serious. I just remembered the names. I nodded, handing the ledger back. It does. Thank you. More than you know. We left the cafe, stepping into the mid-morning light. For a moment the world felt normal again, but we knew it wasn't. Frank was still out there, watching, planning, waiting for the right moment. Back in the car, Jason turned to me. Dad, what now? We know he's dangerous. We know he's obsessed, but we don't know what his next move is. I exhaled, gripping the steering wheel. Now, we prepare. Cameras, police, lawyer, protection. And we wait. But we also gather proof. Everything he's done, everything he's threatened. The moment he tries to move, we're ready. Emily reached over, squeezing my hand. I don't want him to ruin this family. I won't let him. Jason's eyes softened. Neither will we, together. I nodded, glancing at the horizon. Together, always. And even though the shadow of Frank Rourke still loomed over us, for the first time in decades, I felt a spark of hope. We knew what we were facing. And now, we were ready, because Frank might have started this storm, but we were going to end it.